All right, welcome back to Talking Shop. We're here in beautiful Bullhead City. We're talking about Proper 19. I already forgot. Pentecost 17. Can't keep those numbers straight.
Yeah, that's the place.
That's always a
And the Pentecost ones change every year. The propers stay the same. So
yeah, it's always a struggle bus. So anyways, we're talking about James chapter 3, verses 1 through 12. This is all about your tongue. And this might be a very law-centric week, but that's okay.
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Talk through that a little bit.
Hopefully give you some ideas for what to do with this. But at the end of the day, God bless your preaching. But don't forget, like and subscribe and share this with a friend.
Let's do it.
God bless you.
Spit out my Lord in every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms.
We are in James chapter 3, some tough translation today, verses 1 through 12. A lot of words that you just don't come across very often in the New Testament. Some of them were kind of familiar, olives and things like that, but some of these words were just out of there. We looked a lot of stuff up today.
Yes.
But let's jump into it, and then at the end, because there's no gospel in this.
Right.
There's none. This is law,
Yep.
pure and clean and horrifying.
Exactly.
And when we get to the end, I'm going, how do you bring Christ into this, right? Because that's where we're going to have to get to.
Yeah.
One way or the other, we got to get to Jesus. So let's do this. Let's jump in here on verse 1. Pastors, not many of you should become teachers. My brothers. Again, written to church leaders, right? Yeah. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers. So, go do oil changes or whatever it is you take, because it's, you probably make better money anyways. For you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness.
Yeah.
And then he's going to talk about what that looks like. And it's all about your mouth, right? It's all about the things you say or the things you don't say. Yeah. So let's verse 2. For we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. He's going to use this bridle piece. And last I checked, right, there is no perfect man other than Jesus.
That's right. And I'm going to highlight that for later.
And I'm going to say maybe that's where you kind of do this text and you come back and you can't do this. None of you are perfect, but one was.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. See, we just solved that.
Yeah, we solved the problem.
I like that. I like it. Perfect man. And maybe you can use even that as a refrain, because you're not perfect, right? Because you're not perfect. You're not perfect, but Christ is.
Or you could even do it like asking a question.
Yeah.
And are you a perfect man or woman? Can you bridle your whole body or your tongue?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, well, let's keep going. Verse 3. If we put bits in the mouths of horses so that they obey us, and we guide their whole bodies as well, right? So he's going to make this argument about all the different ways that little things guide big things.
Sure.
The tongue is small, guides the body, guides the life he's going to get to. Starts with horses and bridles. It's a great week for imagery, too, right? To describe this, like you could use these images, you can use examples from your own life. Most guys have ridden a horse at some point, and
right.
And it's for most of us, it went terribly bad. At some point, right? If you order like even like cowboys and stuff, guys that do it for a living, it goes bad sometimes, right? And
it does.
So you could talk about how it never goes right because you're not perfect. I mean, there's that horse, right?
I'm laughing because of my horse story.
There you go. Horse story, yeah. And then he goes to ships, right? Look at ships also, though they are so large, driven by strong winds, they're guided by a very small rudder wherever the pilot directs them. Best of all possible worlds. If you've had a boat for more than about 5 minutes, it has messed with your life. You probably have a story about that. If you're a chaplain and you were in the Navy, then you've got a horror story about boats, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or somebody who does. You could tell their story too.
You could even take it to modern day stuff of like you drive a car around and one of the smallest pieces of equipment on that vehicle is the steering wheel, right? Or the brake or the gas pedal.
Yeah. And if you have problems with that, everybody will be able to identify with those things. So also the tongue, verse 5. It's a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. If you're in California, you're a pastor out there, you know about this one.
Yeah.
The whole fire bit. This is all imagery, whether it's cars or boats or horses or fire. Everybody's going to be able to kind of grab onto this and go, yeah, I recognize this. And then verse 6, and the tongue is a fire. And you were translating this, and it's like violent in the Greek. And it's the English is soft in comparison to the verbiage, kind of the way it's used in the Greek.
Mm-hmm.
Tongue is a fire, world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, right? Which, if I remember right, that was a weird phrase, that course of the wheel of birth, right? The start to finish, right? Makes you kind of think of Ezekiel's wheels and all that other stuff, right? You get kind of that great Old Testament imagery in there of the wheel of life as it rolls over us at times.
Yeah.
Which goes back to your car imagery, which goes, it's a lot of cool kind of metaphors and similes going on in here. And set on fire by Gehenna, by hell itself. So it's tough, and you can go, and we may deny it, but you know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Everybody gets caught in that.
I mean, you could have been in the church for 10 minutes and figured out that people are still sinful and their tongues still get the best of them, and people in the church still say things they shouldn't have said, and didn't use tact when they should have used a little more tact in how they approached their neighbor.
Well, yeah, the number one way that folks end up not going to a church somewhere is because somebody said something to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every time.
Yeah.
And you have examples of that at your church, or if you're now at another church, you can use an example from an old church. Don't use names.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Don't use names. But, you can use those examples of those times when that happened, when somebody said something, or maybe you said something, that somebody came to you and went, man, I just can't do it. Mm-hmm. That's too much, or whatever.
Yep.
I've had plenty of those over the last 15, 20 years, it's just plenty of times I've said stupid things.
Yeah.
Even from the pulpit. I'm not meaning to, obviously, but sometimes this stuff comes out and you can't grab it back.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that's the worst feeling. When you go, oh. That was said.
That's right. That was said. Now what? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of my mentors said one of the bravest things you can do sometimes is just say nothing.
Yeah.
And you may want to light this person up.
Yeah.
But just don't.
Yeah. And honestly, silence is scarier.
Yeah. Right?
When you're, I don't know if you're
kids with dads. Yeah.
Yeah. Did your dad ever teach you how to buy a car? He took you to the car dealership with him, and the guy offers you a price, and you just sit there and you don't say anything. And because that salesman is going to open his big dumb mouth to try to get you to say anything because he's filling out his form.
Right.
Silence is golden.
Yeah. That's by the way, that's a little tip for car buying for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good thing.
And duct tape is silver, by the way.
Not on your children.
Yeah.
Okay. Verse 7. For every kind of beast, every kind of beast and bird, and these were the ones I had to look up. Reptiles and sea creatures can be tamed and have been tamed by humanity, by mankind.
Yeah.
So he kind of goes through that list, all these animals, and it's so much cool imagery that you could use. We were talking about some of it, like the ring in a bull's nose, man, kind of all the different ways that have been used to lead large animals.
Or SeaWorld, You can watch the documentary on that if you want. If you want to form your own opinion.
Yeah. Shamu. I'll buy it. Verse 8, but no human being can tame the tongue.
Yeah.
It is a restless evil full of literally death, right? The word is thanatosusin or something like that. It's it's a death sauce. I mean, it's like it's so cool, right?
Death sauce. Sounds like a hot sauce I would want to turn.
Yeah, just this restless evil though. And that's how it feels, isn't it? Just sometimes you're sitting there and the stuff comes out, and you could, I mean, this would be a really cool sermon to do, where you just keep giving example after example after example of the way this fails,
Yeah.
and do really heavy on the law, I would think, and you can do that periodically.
Yeah.
Some guys would argue against it, that you don't want to, in the totality of your preaching, right? No, you don't want the law to predominate, right? The gospel must predominate.
Yep.
But sometimes in 1 week, especially when approached by a text like James 3,
Yeah.
maybe that 1 week, and next week give them a bunch of gospel, right? Do the grace thing, whatever, that kind of but maybe this 1 week you put them on the hook for just a little bit.
Especially because that's what the text
That's what the text does, right? Not because you're trying to be fancy, but that's what the text is doing.
Yeah.
Right? So you put them on the hook on this.
Yeah, Dr. Bierman made a big point about that in our Systems 4 class, and it was like an aside. Where he said, guys, this bothers me when pastors and Ham profs, they tell you that you have to import gospel. Sometimes, yeah, you give them gospel maybe at the end, but if the whole text is law, you preach the darn text, because that's the text that was given to you for the week. And don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Stand up there, be bold, say what needs to be said. Because you're the guy, right? You're the man in the office.
This is why we have the call. Right?
And this is also why we have communion at the end.
Communion afterwards, because you will receive forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right? In your mouth.
Yeah.
Right?
Given and shed for
word
you.
of God for you. You will get it. Maybe not in the sermon this week, but you will get it, right?
Yeah. And that's sort of the beauty of the liturgical flow, right? You come in, you confess your sins, I a poor dirty sinner.
Right.
And then you maybe hear an all law sermon that Sunday, and then you taste and see that the Lord is still good to you, even though that you're full of death sauce.
Yeah, death sauce.
But you get life sauce.
Yeah, life sauce.
Okay, probably shouldn't say that.
No, it's verse 9.
Catching the thing.
Yeah, that's right. You can't grab it back. With it, we bless our Lord and Father, the tongue, right? And with it, we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. And so it's this kind of, it's such a dramatic piece as he does this back and forth.
Yeah.
Created, homologuminous with God, right? Very, from the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. All right, so he calls us to a better way. It's very Christ-like, right? He does that with everybody he meets, right? He says, yeah, your sins are forgiven, but go and sin more. Kind of thing, calls them to a better way.
Yeah.
Paul does that, or James, rather. James does that for us here. And then he looks at what a better way looks like. I mean, and he does this baptismal thing, right? Because he's doing water, right? Adam's not here, so I'm gonna pick up the baptism bucket here. But does a spring pour forth from the same opening, fresh and brackish, salty water? And can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? So it's like all these things are obviously no's. You got some fruit of the Spirit stuff going here as well that you could latch on to. Neither can, again, the water, again, neither can salt pond yield fresh water.
Yeah.
And I think here's where you can go back to that idea of no man is perfect.
Yeah.
But then one came that was perfect because you couldn't be perfect, because you're constantly spewing salty water, and he came with fresh water, the water of life, and do that whole thing. You get a great water imagery piece here, and
Wonder what the gospel is for this.
You can do a baptismal piece in this, that springs forth on you before you even asked for it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So you get all these, while we're still living knee deep in the death sauce of our glossa, of our tongue. Christ dies for us.
Yeah. And the gospel reading is Jesus healing a boy with an unclean spirit. So you could maybe do something with the, like, by the mouth of Jesus, by, you know, the tongue of Jesus speaking the words of to the unclean spirit to come out of the boy, right? He begets life.
Yeah, you could something. I don't know. I may not want to distract, if I'm doing this, from kind of what's happening here. Kind of the tame your tongue bit.
Yeah.
Good for churches.
Yeah.
And people need to hear it periodically, not every week.
I did it this last Sunday.
Yeah, but periodically, like, gotta like control the way we treat each other. The number one way we treat each other is the words that we use, the language that we use or don't use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's with spouses and children and parents and across the people you work with, right? The number one way you end up in trouble at work is you said something stupid.
Yeah, what's that Psalm verse? May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my God, my rock and my redeemer.
Yeah.
That could maybe be a refrain throughout this sermon as well. You know, there is no, have you been perfect? No. But
yeah,
why do we come to church every week? Because we need to be reminded of who we are and who we've been made to be. And
Jesus was perfect because you're
yeah, and we need God to make our hard hearts of flesh, and make our fiery tongues ones that don't spew death sauce.
And he forgives even this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what he was doing on the cross.
Yeah,
forgiving even this.
Yeah.
Good. This one's about the tongue. It's man, this one is shooting fish in a barrel this week. If you're gonna bring the law.
Yeah.
But make sure you give him a minute of Jesus. Remind him that he died to forgive that stuff too.
Yeah.
And subscribe. Tell us how you did. Tell us if you used it. Maybe use it in conjunction with something else.
Mm-hmm.
And God bless your preaching.